everybody, welcome to another episode of Cineverse here. As you can see, we got some special guests. Oh, and one of them's already done. What a diva.
That's my shoot. I'm done.
Chef, as you can see, is already done. Guys, we're going to be talking about Isle of Dogs today, and so thus we decided to bring in some of our four-legged friends, some pooches, and also we decided to bring in Miss Vivian Yoon.
Hi.
Vivian is a writer, comedian, actress here in Hollywood, and she's got some strong opinions about that Isle of Dog life.
Very strong.
Very strong. If you follow her on Instagram, you gotta see those stories.
A little hair on me.
So, it's already happened.
Oh
boy, I know. I should not have worn dark colors.
Hi, you want to get that too?
And everyone, you know Kaiju. This lassie-looking fella over here is Shep. Shep, say hello to the people. That's as good as it's gonna get. And this little cotton ball over here is named Rosie. And those two are Elizabeth's doggos. Guys, we're gonna talk about Ready Player One, Isle of Dogs, and also Logan Lucky. Adam's gonna be joining in after Isle of Dogs. No real movie news. Also, we don't want to bore these dogs with boring stuff about movie news.
They don't care.
Not interesting. But let's jump into Isle of Dogs. So this is written and directed by Wes Anderson. Story by Wes Anderson, Jason Schwartzman, Roman Coppola, and another person who I believe is Japanese, and I feel so bad that I cannot. That's him.
Something Nomura. I can't remember the first name.
Something Nomura.
We should have this on our phones.
And it's a stop-motion animation film, along with similar to Fantastic Mr. Fox that Wes Anderson had done. The cast is a lot of Wes Anderson regulars: Bill Murray, Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum. Bryan Cranston joining in as don't need that happening during the show. Bryan Cranston is is the main dog. That's his first time working with Wes Anderson, I believe. Unless there's because Bryan Cranston showed up in random films all the time in the 90s, so it wouldn't shock me if it's nope, he's in Rushmore for 10 seconds.
He was the janitor in Rushmore.
As a principal.
Something like that.
Kenichi Nomura.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And the other half of the cast is a lot of famous Japanese actors. Ken Watanabe was the one who stood out to me as well. And the plot line. Oh, there they go. The plot line of the film. I'm trucking forward. The plot line of the film is there is it takes place about 20 years in the future in a fictional Japanese town.
This is so funny.
In a fictional Japanese town in the future, the mayor has this, who is a cat person and does not like dogs, has decided to outlaw dogs because there's a dog flu going around, and is sending them to an island called Trash Island. Hey, as long as they don't knock over the cameras, we're good. This is going great. They decided to send them to a place called Trash Island. The mayor's young ward decided, we're doing Isle of Dogs. The mayor's young ward decides he needs to go get his dog Spot, and him and some of these domesticated dogs decide to go on a road trip to save Spot while things are still happening in the major city.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it, because there's also some controversy about the film. But before we dive fully into that, what did we think of the movie? Viv, I want to go to you first.
I loved it. I cried 3 times.
Now, are you because you're a big dog person, or was it other things on top of that?
I'm a dog person, but I think this story was just so full of heart, and it was so full of heart and hope in a way that not a lot of movies these days are. And it was very sincere and very genuine, and I loved it so much.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I also liked it. I cried.
Did you cry?
Yeah, I once or twice.
Yes.
There's a thing in the beginning that's a false where everyone. But
that got you?
Yeah. I mean, I really thought it was really clever. I thought the devices that they used were both cute and funny, and also served the picture well. Mm-hmm. I thought the design was really good. I thought the difference between being able to understand some things and not understanding certain things, and how that didn't really matter because you got the story was used really well. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm a dog person, so I thought that all the conspiracy theories of cat lovers is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucas, you're a big Wes Anderson fan, too.
I loved it. I gotta say, it's not my favorite Wes Anderson film of all time, but it was fantastic.
What's your favorite?
I think, it's tough with me right now, but I think it's tied between like Grand Budapest Hotel and Life Aquatic. I love both of those movies.
Interesting.
I know. I know.
The judgment was so harsh.
I know.
I think it
I
was
always
Life
get
Aquatic
judged.
that did it.
I always get judged for those.
I mean, those two together is very interesting.
I think they're the
but that's
tightest, and I
tough.
think this one had some parts that weren't as tight as other of his movies. But I was so blown away by like the animation that like I really want to go back and watch it again because I feel like I missed a lot of story because I was just like in awe of all of the pretty things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it as well. I think I have some minor things, but for the most part, like I really loved it. Everything with the dogs on the island, I could have just stayed there. I thought that was great. I love the 5 dogs together, especially like all the little jokes and how Wes Anderson-y it is. Every time it was like, I heard a rumor. Oh, what did you hear? That? What rumor? Blah, blah, blah. And then the resolution of that with Jeff Goldblum, where they finally
Jeff
go.
Goldblum was my favorite dog.
Oh yeah, where they finally go. Who keeps telling you these things? He's like, I listen. I like gossip. I
love it.
Edward Norton, I loved as like the super obedient dog.
Yeah.
The like super inline dog, I thought was great.
I'm gonna cry. Just thinking about all of them.
Where he's just
so
like,
emotional.
They're all such good boys.
You're being disobedient.
I also really loved all the like cute shaggy dogs. That was like another gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in the
Yeah.
beginning.
When they got kicked out at the
year, yeah.
beginning.
Okay, we got 2 rotten
So
pickles.
good.
We got some. It's worth it. I
it's
love
worth
the
it,
fight
yeah.
scenes where like dust balls, like old
It's just like
animation,
cotton.
like Looney Tune cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much I really, really loved about it.
It's great.
The effect of like the dogs tearing up and how they were able to do that
Oh my
with the people, I thought
God.
was great. And yeah, I also was a very big fan of. There's this great Steven Spielberg interview from years and years and years ago, and he said like, if you want to tell if someone knows how to tell a story visually, watch a movie for the first time with the sound off and see if you can follow the plot. Now, obviously, it doesn't work with every movie, but it's more conventional films. And I think the idea of not translating so much of this movie, I kind of thought about that interview because I'm like, I get exactly what's going on. Like visually, I can totally figure it out. Like even with like having Frances McDormand as the translator on the news, even that to some extent, I was like, I don't even know if I need that. Like I feel like I'm following everything pretty succinctly.
I love that they actually put that character in because it pays it off at the end, where this like objective translator has an emotional moment.
Yeah.
And they
Oh,
break,
yeah.
like that's such a good twist. And it's like not just functional, but like oh my God, I loved it so much. Except casting Frances McDormand is probably the one thing that the only thing with like all the criticisms.
So yeah, we can talk a bit about the controversy for sure. So the big thing that's obviously people are talking about this movie, if you haven't been reading up on it or you just saw the movie, is whether this is cultural appropriation. And a lot has been made about Wes Anderson doing some interviews where he said he was in London and saw a sign that said Isle of Dogs, and he'd wanted to make a movie about Japan and the Japanese culture for a while, so he decided to combine the 2 ideas. And so there's a lot of people who, and a lot of it started, I believe, from the Los Angeles Times review from Justin Chang that said this movie could be viewed as cultural appropriation. He didn't say it was. And a lot of people picked up that article and retweeted it and started to say, it is cultural appropriation, to the point where Justin Chang had to come out and say, just to be clear, I like the movie.
Justin Chang's review is like very nuanced and calm, and like he talks about the movie for like a good 4 paragraphs or full page before he even touches on that issue.
But a lot of other writers, it was smart writer, Angie Han for Pajabo wrote a piece saying it was cultural appropriation because the Japanese culture is used as set dressing from an outsider perspective, and all these other things.
Which it's not.
So Viv, I want you to talk about the. Now I will also say Viv wanted, before you came on the show.
Yes.
We worked on Sunday, and she's like, "Can we please make it clear to the audience that I am not Japanese?"
I am not Japanese. I'm not. However, I am Asian American, and I feel okay. So like I went off on this whole tirade on Facebook and Instagram at like 4:30 in the morning because it was bothering me so much.
That's what you do. You do it at a time when you can't possibly have a physical conversation with someone. When you write like, "Here's my shit,"
and then you go to bed and see what happens the next morning.
Yes,
and you have 9+ notifications.
I forgot I did this. Let me deal with the consequences. And that was the next morning. But Yeah, oh God, there's so many Asian Americans out there who like took this idea that this movie was cultural appropriation and that they should have casted more Japanese actors if it was a movie about Japan. They have not seen the movie and they're talking about it. Oh my God, that makes me so mad when people have opinions about stuff that they've never experienced. And it's so easy to experience it first.
It's 2 hours.
Go do it.
240 if you go to a regular theater that shows so many fucking trailers.
Oh my God. But so I wrote this whole thing about how I don't think it's cultural appropriation because cultural appropriation happens when you like steal stuff from other cultures and like fuck the can I?
Yeah,
okay.
of course.
Like
Never just
fuck
did
the
it.
history. I don't give a shit where this comes from. Those dreads look really cool. I'm gonna do that to my hair. Versus like, cultural appropriation involves a lack of respect and like a dismissal of its history and kind of its roots and what made that thing so important to this culture. And like you watch this movie, you do not get that feeling at all. There's never a moment when you feel like that was careless because it's Wes Anderson. His MO is carefulness.
Overly careful.
Yeah, it's like that's what he's known for is being meticulous about every single thing that you see or don't see on the screen.
Yes.
So I'm like, how could you claim that Wes Anderson of all people is doing something that implies like a carelessness and a dismissal? I'm like, first of all, that doesn't make sense. Second, if you watch the movie, every Japanese character is Japanese. Except for Nelson, who is Frances McDormand, who like appears to be Japanese.
Yeah.
I feel like they also gave her brown hair and stuff. Because I was watching the movie, I was also like, and it sounds so bad, I was also like, is this a Japanese person? Or is it not because like they tint her hair a certain color?
It's like a little bit in between. It's a little bit ambiguous. And that's the only one where I'm like, he wanted to work with her. He had a vision for this character. But considering the climate, that we live in right now, it probably would have been responsible to get a Japanese American person to be the translator, because that way you can really cover all your bases. But that was really the only one thing.
Yeah,
what do you think about the argument about the Greta Gerwig character?
The white
Because I've
savior?
heard that, yeah.
I think it's understandable why some people would think that when they see it. But I would argue that one, Atari is the hero, right? He is clearly the hero.
Yes.
Two,
and the Greta Gerwig character is not introduced till like halfway through the film.
yeah. And
She's very much secondary.
Like, I understand people's, thing about like, oh yeah, you need a white girl to slap Yoko Ono out of her whatever. And I'm like, no. This is like a cultural thing. This is like a classic movie trope of the outsider, the Western outsider coming in and shaking things up. And they totally lean into that by having this like lanky girl with a big fro be so unexpectedly violent. And it's totally a play on that trope. It's the movie trope of a Westerner coming in and being like, I'm gonna do things different here. And the thing is, like, she didn't even really save the day. The real hero was Atari, but really it was that funny looking hacker kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
He saved the day. He saved all those dogs.
Yeah, so I think my thing, like, that's probably my only thing about the movie that I love. And not about the white savior things, which I think is like an understandable argument, but it was honestly, so because the movie's kind of like a road movie, it's like, here's our journey, we have to go do a journey. I feel like the Greta Gerwig stuff, and even if it had been like a Japanese character with a Japanese actress, I felt like every time we went back to her, the momentum died a little bit. Like that was my only.
Like there were little lulls.
Yeah, that was the only. And I think like the movie's probably for me, maybe about 15 minutes too long. And when I look at all the Greta Gerwig scenes, I am kind of like, well, and not every scene needs to be important to a plot. Like that's the thing is like what I love about movies is like something can just be a cool moment. There's 80s films we love that have dance sequences that do nothing for the plot. They're just fun.
Or Ex Machina, that dance scene.
Oh, yeah, that's so good.
It's just like so weird and surreal.
So like not every scene needs to be like, oh, this is pushing the plot forward. But I felt like the Greta Gerwig scenes, there was no information we as the audience already didn't know. And it wasn't being used as a suspense. Like we already knew about the corruption, the poison, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So we're watching scenes of this character figuring it out,
I
but she's not the main character.
I do agree with that. I feel like she could have been more of a B story than she was that joined up with it. There were like a couple moments where it's like the crush thing that they used in the trailer. Like, I'm just like, all right. Like,
yeah.
I didn't need that.
I felt like that whole character was the weakest part of the movie. It just all felt like spoon feeding. Like, her character existed to like tell us what was going on, and it was like Frances McDormand's character can kind of do that for us. This character just feels like an addition that doesn't need to be there. That was like the only thing that I was like, this is an odd choice to even have this character.
But
there.
I do like the idea of a band of like misfits meeting up with this one lone kid and working together and meeting up at the end. Like, that's, I don't know if I needed as much of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the only thing, is like I felt like the momentum of the movie was going great with the dogs and the boy, and I didn't mind going back to the city where you're like, well, here's what's happening in the city with the cure and the scientists and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, and that's everything's kind of going forward. But the Greta Gerwig stuff, I just kind of felt like, yeah, I'm not getting any new information. And at that point, I just kind of want to be like, let's get back to the dogs.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It is a trope, but it's not a trope I necessarily mind. But it was the only thing. Like, it just felt like, in a weird way, it almost felt like one of those things where it's like they had their plot line in the movie and the story, and then they were like, oh, what if there's also like a journalistic investigation side of things? And I was like, I feel like you could. I do wonder if you took a fan edit and took out all the Greta Gerwig stuff, would that affect the film in a major way? And I don't know.
Okay, here's a defense of her character.
Sure.
Right? I think like every scene she's in, except for the one where she's like looking at all the stuff on the wall with the light. No, even that one, because, okay. So, yeah, I take back the last 10 seconds. I'm going to defend her character because she's an American girl.
Yes.
Every scene she's in, she's interacting with Japanese characters that we might not see otherwise.
Yeah.
So we would not have gotten the students, right? Like that
The student protest group.
That like newspaper group or whatever. Like that was there. The Hacker K was there, and it's her interacting with them. So it's like how Japanese media and stuff deals with it versus this Western outsider. Then you have her like alone doing all this like sleuthing, and that like her weird tone, her like dramatic tone is broken by her interacting with the grandma that she's staying with.
Yeah.
And she's speaking Japanese, and you see her being polite in the culture,
Yeah.
right? And then you see her with the scientist, and that's when I didn't really care for her character much until that scene with Yoko Ono.
Adam, if
where
you want to
she,
let
like,
Rosie back in, feel free.
Yeah, just let in the white one.
just stop barking.
Oh, just the white one.
It's so loud.
You're welcome. You guys have to go to Trash Island. Yeah, and like I think because of that, I really liked it. Like I really liked having her as an American interact with these different Japanese characters.
Yeah.
And like it was so funny when she like drank the milk and threw the glass.
Yeah, I did like that.
I
That was funny.
And I do think like
cute.
that character, I don't want to say she wasn't completely necessary. Like I think there were parts that definitely added to the story. I just
think
wonder.
she was weaker.
Yeah, I think she was
Yeah.
the weakest part. I
Yes.
wonder if she were a Japanese girl as well, and we still had those scenes, but they were untranslated. I still think we could have figured it out.
Yeah.
And I think I would have liked that.
Totally agree with that. But she looks so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
She
did
does.
like
She's such a great
the freckles.
look,
The freckles
and it
on that
stands out.
character.
Fro, yeah.
And just that awkwardness of that age and that character
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder how it'll go down in a second. Because that's the thing I like about Wes Anderson movies too, is on rewatches they get a lot better and smoother and stuff like that. Even if you love them on the first watch.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to see if like that stuff will flow with better.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this whole like they should have cast more Japanese actors, and oh my god, the worst argument is they should have cast more Japanese American actors. That one makes me really mad, especially because like the people who are arguing that, like the thing I've seen a lot on Facebook is this one article where this guy was like, if you are Asian and you have an opinion that you like this movie, it's not cultural appropriation, shut the fuck up. Because you're not Asian American, and Asian American experiences are different from Asian experiences. So you have no right to tell us how we feel and blah, blah. I'm like, This movie isn't about Asian Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about Japan.
Yeah.
It's straight up in Japan. They're speaking Japanese. There's nothing Asian American about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I am all for more Asian American representation in mainstream media, right? I'm an actor. I'm like totally for it. But I feel like lumping those two together or conflating the two is so irresponsible, and it hurts the cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just like, let's be more specific and nuanced and careful, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not the movie. This one is not it. Black Panther's South Korea scenes.
Oh, so talk about this. You've had some opinion, and I love what you said about this.
Dude, did you guys watch Black Panther?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so every time they were in South Korea and there was like a Korean person speaking, it was unintelligible.
Right.
It was literally like, I was talking like this, and you kind of had to train to understand what I'm saying.
So do you think
Right,
that
like-
these are like
I've heard
Korean American
other
actors
people
who
say that.
just didn't speak Korean very well, or like at a very low level and learned it for the movie? Or?
I don't even know if they were Korean. I like didn't check the credits,
Mm.
but
But the fact that
They
no one
were-
said anything about it.
it was like, not only was the pronunciation wrong, but the dialogue itself, like the diction and words and syntax, was so weird. It was like things that didn't make sense. There was like some part where she asked like, "Oh, where's the guy?" And he says like, "Oh, he's out back" or something. But instead of "he's out back," he says like, "They're in the behind of the building."
Oh,
like
boy.
something really weird like that. And it's like, man, people really care about getting certain things right, but when it comes to getting Asian languages correct, it's not there yet. People don't care yet.
And it's worth
People really
saying,
don't
Viv
care.
loved Black Panther. This
Yes.
is not a shit
oh
on
my
Black
God, Wakanda forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
oh
I
my
think,
God.
I think that's important right there, and that's like a big takeaway, is that you should be able to criticize a movie and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like what Justin Chang was saying, is that like this movie might have some problems to some people, but it has some really important things to say.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it has, like, Isle of Dogs, it has a great message of, like, anti-xenophobia,
Right.
of, like, don't throw out your
sneezes.
people. Like, there's some
Dog flu.
powerful moral themes that I think you can find, and I think that you should be able to critique certain things that you don't like and still see, like, the greater picture of, like, this is a good movie, though.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think in this case, the dialogue regarding like the criticisms is way overshadowing like just how good a movie this is. And I think when that negative kind of criticism eclipses the rest of the movie, that's when it's a problem.
Yes.
Right.
'Cause it's
Absolutely.
like your criticism is forcing people to boycott this movie
Yeah.
instead of watch it for yourself and then see what you think.
That's always kind of bugged me, is like the boycotting before you find out what something is based on like a
know.
clickbait headline or something.
Yes, and I'm like, dude, Wes Anderson is rich, and you know what? If you want to like bootleg stream this movie, go ahead. But like, if you don't want to spend the money, fine. But just watch it before you are irresponsibly tweeting out your opinions that go out to like, I don't know, 12 or 12,000 people and influencing other people's decisions. Like, that's so irresponsible.
Well, it's another thing that has always bothered me that I feel like is never talked about, is that there are literally thousands of people that work on a movie. So to say the director made a misstep, but so we're going to completely boycott this movie,
Yes.
is saying we don't support any of the hard work that went into like the animation,
Yeah.
the voice acting, all
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these great things about the movie
Yeah.
that are perfect. It's just saying this movie doesn't matter because of Wes Anderson, which is tough.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Thousands of people.
Okay, I feel like when people are overly critical of a movie that's like doing well in theaters,
Sure.
it's like the clearest sign that you have no idea how a movie gets made.
Sure.
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
the number
I
one
agree.
red flag of like, oh, you have no idea what a production looks like. Because it's a miracle
Yeah.
that any movie is good.
So much
It
teamwork.
honestly is a miracle. And so I'm like, oh my God, when I walked out of Gravity, there was this girl going, it was like just okay. Like, I don't know. And then her boyfriend was like, okay, but they were in space the whole time. That's amazing, right? Like, they didn't actually shoot it in space. And she goes, yeah, I guess, but like, I didn't like it. And I was like, oh my God, this girl watched this movie, believed that it was shot in space, and is like unhappy with the storyline. Whereas like people who are aware of how movies get made, saw that movie and went, they're in space the entire time. Like, how did they achieve this? This is amazing.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I hear some people like who have been on sets criticize Mad Max Fury Road, and not about the script stuff. They're just like, I don't know what the big deal is. I'm like, you know how hard that must have been to make?
Dude, yeah.
In the middle of the fucking African desert?
It's insane. It's so crazy. And
Your sketches look like shit. You're criticizing this.
it's so wild. It's so wild to me. And like when people criticize actors too, of like, oh, the acting was so bad. This actor is the worst actor. I'm like, actors do what they're told, and they're edited the way that editors edit them.
Yeah.
Oh, there are things I've worked on, directed, where I'm like, man, if I really wanted to, I could torpedo this whole thing with some of the like edited choices I can pull from an actor and be like, oh, here's the one where they like forgot their line for half a second, made big eyes, and then remembered it. If I put that in as the take,
I think almost anytime someone criticizes someone's acting, it's typically awkward editing. Of like, we should have cut out of this scene quicker, or I shouldn't have used that shot of them.
Yeah, or it was just like bad casting, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ewan McGregor.
Dude.
No, he was great. He was great as the candle.
Oh my God. I watched like the first 5 minutes of Beauty and the Beast, and I was so sad. Because
it's such a beautiful story.
Emma Watson, like, I've never seen a more joyless performance.
Have you seen the picture of her holding the guy's arm and he's on the moon shoes?
Dan Stevens.
It's amazing. So, because the guy who plays the Beast is in one of those suits with all the tracking devices and then moon shoes. And she's in the full ball gown holding his hand, and she just looks so unhappy.
That's
and it's like the funny. They're like at the top of like this huge staircase. I love that picture.
What's his face? Matthew Crowley from Downton Abbey.
Dan Stevens.
Yes.
Who's now on Legion, which is great. Everybody, Legion is so good.
It just looks like she's like,
so
this is who took me to the dance.
It's so crazy. Like all the behind the scenes Game of Thrones stuff where Daenerys is like riding a big green machine, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I have seen that. I also don't know why they made his like Prince version in the beginning of the movie with the curse and stuff. Like, I don't know why he looked so dumb.
Oh, I know.
Right? Like,
to be fair, he kind of looks dumb in the Disney movie too, but he's only there at the very end.
I enjoy this quarter review of Beauty.
I have not seen this movie. I came here to talk about the dog movie.
Oh, right. I love dogs. I loved it.
I'm just going to throw in, since we are talking about technical aspects of films, just the animation choices I thought were amazing. And the fact that they made everything look a little bit grotesque but still cute.
The
I
bugs,
love that. Yeah.
All the fucking bugs.
The rats.
Yeah, and the hair's messy.
Yes.
That's what I like about Fantastic Mr. Fox too, is like Wes Anderson said, because now technology has obviously gone much further than like Rudolph and stuff like that. So like from what I was understanding from Fantastic Mr. Fox, they were like, oh, well, we don't want it to look as like jerky and like fingerprints on the clay and this, that, and the other. And Wes Anderson was like, no, I want that.
Yeah.
I want it to look like an old 70s thing.
100%, yeah. That was his thing, right? Of like, that's the other thing about cultural appropriation. The argument is like, in every single one of his interviews, he's very clear. He's not paying tribute to Japan. It's to Japanese cinema. And there's a really big difference.
Yeah.
There's a really big difference.
Yeah.
And so you guys, like, you're wrong. That's like what I'm saying. It's like, go watch the movie again. And if you don't get it, like, try to make a clay figurine move. Like, try it.
They had the figures at the ArcLight. They had the people. I don't know where the dogs are. Maybe New York has them.
I did see that.
Yeah. And they have all the little. You can see the little seams where they pop in the faces and the arm movements and stuff.
So wild.
And it's just
So I love that, like, the people all look like little zombies.
Yeah.
Like, I love they're not overly cute.
No.
My favorite visual sequence was when they were The Cure, when they were doing all the tests and printing out effective or whatever. Cure, like, that was so good. And it was so gratuitous, and it was just because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I loved every second
I
of
also
it.
really love the map scenes.
Yes.
All the history, the drawings.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. In the
Those were
beginning,
great.
that was amazing. Like, it was amazing. Oh, And the choice to like have everything that's on a screen be 2D animation.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I love that so much because it's like, one, yeah, you're saving money and it's practical, but two, like, it's a play on different mediums within this weird medium.
Like we've subtracted into this. It was a cool like meta joke of like we're in this dimension now watching, so that would be like a further subtraction of them watching would be 2D.
But it's not like distracting.
I would also say like the production, if you looked at the credits, is surprisingly small, or maybe not surprisingly considering the way he does things, but like compared to other features that are animated, usually you have 4 times as many credits as
like
that.
a DreamWorks movie or something. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it so much.
It was a good time.
I really did.
So guys, we're all saying go see Isle of Dogs.
Check it out.
Form your own opinion, and it's okay to criticize things that you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're wrong.
But guys, Lucas is gonna step out for this one, and Adam's gonna step on in, and we're gonna do a review of Ready Player One, the newest Steven Spielberg movie, which I will own up to. I have not seen yet.
All right, guys. So now we're going to continue our reviews. We're going to do Ready Player One.
I like that more than Ready Player One.
By the way, Cameron grew some hair, and Lucas changed his clothes, so it's all good.
Same people.
But before, you had a final thought.
I have one more thing to say about Isle of Dogs because I have a lot to say, like I did at 4:30 a.m. that one night. I love how so much of that Japanese was left untranslated. Like a big argument that a lot of Asian Americans are making is like, because the main characters, like their dialogue wasn't translated, it's hard for people to relate to the characters on the screen, like enforcing the otherness. And I was like, that is the most like bullshitty, I have not seen this movie, but I want to sound smart argument ever. Because one, the stuff not being translated was a choice. And it was to emphasize the fact that, like, oh, these people are different from you, but they are also human, and they exist on their own terms, and it's completely fine if you don't get it, because those parts are not for you, which I 100% agree with. And two, I forgot what my second point was.
Well, I will say, after listening to your guys' review, super intrigued to watch this movie. I mean, it's a Wes Anderson movie, so...
Yes.
I would go watch it no matter what, but I really liked the conversation you guys had, and I'm curious to see what the audience, what some of the viewers say who have seen it, and if they agree or disagree, because there was a lot of people talking about the cultural appropriation aspect of this movie.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get perspective and hear it from other people who have seen it to see whether or not they agree and why they do or don't. So
also,
that was great.
like, you know, maybe do a little research on Japanese culture before you comment on whether this is accurate or not, because like so much of it was commentary on the political state in Japan and what politics are like and what corruption in politics are like and what the Yakuza is like and what happens when you are different and stand out from the rest of society. Like, you know, make sure you know the basics. Be
At the very
responsible.
I have no input.
We're not
Okay, sorry, I just had to get all of that off my chest.
No, that's great. That's great.
Awesome.
But let's talk about Ready Player One. I went and I saw this movie last week. I went out of my way to go watch a 70mm screening of a movie that's not shot in 65, and it was scratched. So that really pissed me off.
Wait, what do you mean it was scratched?
The print was all scratched up because it's a film print, and it was scratched. And I was like, all right, well,
That
this
early?
sucks.
That's a real bummer. I went
Yeah.
to a special screening at a new DTS theater with a new Dolby True Sound setup, and it was really phenomenal.
Nice. Cool. I'm glad we got to experience both ends of that.
And I didn't have to pay to go.
Oh, wow.
Just on myself. I just wanted to throw
Yeah,
that
no,
out
it's
there.
my
fine. You can
God.
keep throwing shade. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
he just like spit in your face.
He did. It's a good thing we live together because
Yeah.
I know where he sleeps.
It was a VIP event with only people who worked on the film behind the scenes and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, DTS. That was cool.
That's so.
So you love the movie? And here comes the bus.
You guys seen it?
I have not seen it,
But you read the
You've
book,
read the-
but
right?
I did read the book.
Gotcha.
Wow, the worst of the two properties.
Yeah.
Is it?
A lot of people are saying that.
It's
I
better
have
than the
not
book.
read the book,
Oh,
and I've
wow.
seen the film.
Okay.
I will say I enjoyed the second half of the movie much more than the first half. The first half had a lot of still cringy moments for me. And I don't... Here's the thing. I think...
You mean when she like touches his crotch, that didn't make you squirm in your seat a little bit?
Oh, God.
What?
I'm pretty sure Malik and I both like audibly gasp.
And just the suit thing was just so they have the suit like when they're touched.
Yeah.
And then like she's just like what version VR suit do you have? And then she like touches him and then you see him in the chair and it like goes red and he's like, oh, and it's like
Getting all hot and heavy in this scene.
I don't remember
this is
that
so
at all.
awkward.
They changed some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I will say
Yeah.
they changed a lot, but for the best, I think.
I will say
Yeah,
the guy
yeah.
sitting in front of me was eating the movie up.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh,
was
he's loving it.
I was like one of 5 people in that screening, and the guy was like laughing at everything.
Oh, wow.
He was having a good old time, and when there were certain references to certain characters, like when Chucky shows up in the end and just starts stabbing the shit out of
like
everything.
that shot. That was
That
fun.
was
Chucky thing
fun.
was
Man,
fun.
that guy was having a ball in the theater, which is great. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
I think that's what the movie's for. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I do think that the movie is a better celebration of nostalgia than the book, but I still think it's like gatekeeping the movie. You know, it feels so much like if you don't get it, too bad. You know, you're not a
Right.
part
Yeah.
of this group. And the fact that there's even the book was nothing but that. The book was literally
yeah.
just a self jerk off fest of
Like
like,
a
I
list.
know everything about all the references and it was hard to get through at times because it was just so like, look, I love all these things too, but I don't. Come on, like, where's the substance here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Funny.
It's because it doesn't. There are a lot of properties where it's just here it is. It's not like a clever way to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few times where
There were
they
some
had
clever
clever
ones.
ways to use,
The-
yeah.
You know, the scene. I don't want to ruin the scene, but there was
There's
a
one that
scene-
made everyone
Oh,
happy.
I don't care about
even-
spoilers.
I don't care about spoilers either.
Oh, yeah, I guess you saw, but
Spoilers!
okay, spoilers. Well, there's a awesome scene, and gosh, how do I explain this? Because the feeling I had, I didn't know that scene was coming because it's not in the book,
Okay.
and it was probably like as a lover of cinema,
Yeah.
it was a great scene as a callback to, you know, a famous hotel and some blood.
The Shining.
The Shining.
I
Kubrick's The
see.
Shining.
That's not
some
really a
axes.
spoiler.
I
They're in
know,
The
just-
Shining
It was
for a
great.
while.
That scene, I wasn't expecting it, and it really, like, that was my favorite scene in
Yeah.
the movie. But
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with the overall plot of the film.
It does not at all.
They
no.
did a very good job, but it's mostly like, do you like The Shining? We're going to do a
Yes.
very good job of putting these characters in The Shining to the
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
that you're like, wow, they did an amazing job
Yeah.
recreating
Yeah.
this.
And
They
I like-
spent a lot of money and time to make this look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fish out of water aspect that too, of like someone interacting in that world. And I
Yes.
like that was one of the scenes where there was actually a character who was like, I've
I
never
don't
seen
know
this.
what
Yeah.
this is.
And I don't
What
know
is
what this
This
is.
is
Yep.
weird.
Yep.
And that was great because I think a lot of people need that when they're going into this movie because
Yeah.
most of the references in this film are from the friggin' 70s, 80s.
There,
Yeah.
And
For a movie
most of
that
the
takes
kids
place in-
watching it don't
Yeah.
know any of this
yeah.
stuff.
For a movie
Yeah.
that takes place in 2045, you have Halo, and I think there's an Overwatch reference.
There's tracers in there.
And I think that's kind of it. The rest of it is all stuff that's like
80s,
you're saying,
man.
all the way for like 70. There's even some stuff from 2001. It's like 70s, 80s, and a little bit of like 90s. Iron Giant being like the most prominent 90s thing. But yeah, I purposely stayed away from the book because my whole philosophy is I don't read the book if I know a movie's coming out because I don't want the book to influence my opinion of the movie.
It would have probably made you like the movie more.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm very interested to go back and read the book. I've had the book for a couple of years now, but I knew the movie was coming, so I was like, I'm gonna stay away from it. I don't want to bother with it.
You know what the best part of the book is? The cover.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
I
an
agree.
awesome cover.
Yeah.
It's a good cover. The red one with the
Yes.
yellow text. Yeah, it's
and
great.
then it's like all downhill from there.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. You know, Malik and I, we did the audiobook together when we were driving up from LA to Seattle one time. And we
interesting.
listened
Who
to the whole
read
thing
that?
all the way through. Will Wheaton.
Huh.
Which definitely makes sense, but it doesn't help with the gatekeeping aspect.
Yes.
And I do personally know Will, and I think Will's great, but just I'm an uber nerd like him too, and I have to understand sometimes when I go in situations
Yeah.
and you start to see people you're talking to get that glossed over look that you're like,
Yes.
okay, I got to go back to reality for a second
Right.
and reframe this in a way that someone can relate to.
Right.
And Will's great to read that kind of thing, but then he does go on those tangents, which the book does too.
Yeah.
And Malik and I both came out of that just being so much like, this is everything we love. We love everything in this book. This is our entire world. This is our industry. This is what we do for a living. But we can't relate to this for some reason at all.
Yeah.
It just lacked any substance or reason for us to care.
Right, because there are no real characters.
That's a big problem. And
Yes.
I will say that the movie, I feel like it's the best directed movie of like almost very little substance.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think like a lesser director, it just would have been so obvious that these characters don't have arcs. They're not really established. There's not really a reason. And Steven Spielberg, because he's so good at that stuff, is using all these tricks to be like, oh, I feel satisfied with what happened. And then you're like, wait, why do I?
Yeah.
No, he's good. It's tight. It's a tight movie. There's
Yeah.
scenes that are really great. That first racing scene was
Awesome.
awesome.
That's like that and the Shining sequence are my favorite moments in that movie. It's so good.
That's so cool. Is it playing in IMAX? Do you guys know?
Probably. It's whatever.
He may have had a problem with this print, but it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
There's some
that's
cool
why
stuff.
I do want to go rewatch it again, just so I can get a better experience, because it was so distracting watching this movie with scratches and stuff. But in terms of the characters, I do agree. I 100% believe that Spielberg is probably one of the only directors who could have made this movie and done it in a way where, yes, the characters, I didn't care about any of the relationships. The romance felt very forced, or maybe not even forced. It just felt so unrealistic and dumb. I didn't care about it. But I think Spielberg is the only person who could have made me care about other things in the movie and not completely lost me because of how flat the characters are and how much of a lack of arc there is between all these characters. I mean, even the main character, there's nothing really memorable about any single person. It's more about
I will
the
say
movie.
The one person who was the exception for me was Lena. What's her name from Master of None?
Oh, gotcha.
I
Yeah.
thought she was a very smart casting choice, and I don't think it was particularly in the writing, but just she is such
performance.
like a very specific performer that it like, oh, that's interesting. That's not what I expected to see.
Yeah.
And so that made me like her character.
Yeah, I don't want to nitpick because I could nitpick the hell out of this
Same.
film.
Same.
And
My biggest nitpick is that they use the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles.
See, I don't want to sit here and nitpick because I understand, like, as an overall emotion and a feeling. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Same.
I went into it expecting to be really disappointed because the book was just such a bad experience for me. And it's weird. Within the industry and the people we work with, Malika and I are always surprised. Like, some people that we work with just say it's the greatest and they love the book because it is a representation of everything we know.
Right.
And then her and I both came out like, this is a representation of everything we love, but also all the problems too.
Right.
Of that, like, oh, you mean the entire world of pop culture is all dictated by one dude who liked things in the 70s and 80s and that's it?
Yeah.
And also, he's God.
And he's God. He's
pretty
God.
much.
And there's an inherent huge problem with that, especially the idea that in 2045, nobody apparently experienced any pop culture.
That's an issue
At
I
all.
had too.
Yeah.
It's just like the 80s were so great that we never made anything ever again.
Right.
And in
Nirvana.
2045, that's still.
Yeah.
But, you know, obligatory like tracer. Oh, Overwatch, we got that in there because it's really popular right now. But it is just a collection
Fortnite reference,
of this almost pornographic ideology of this ideal man from the 80s that was so like misunderstood, but he loved video games and nerd culture. And the movie takes that a little bit further. And you're like, oh no, he loved all pop culture, anything pop culture.
Okay.
He loved it all. It was just a pop culture appreciation.
Yeah.
And this idolization of that type of person is part of what the problem was with the book, because we all know now that ideology has a lot of issues, and there's a lot of things that it just completely ignores that we've had to deal with over the last couple of years on the internet, of the self-inflicted, damaged older white male on the internet who thinks everything that they grew up with is what's better, and anyone new coming to that experience, I'm sorry, but your experiences aren't important. You know?
It is interesting that you use the word like pornographic, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly how the book felt. It's like the difference between, because you're just like, this is everything I love, but shallow and superficial and like weird, and it makes me feel weird. And I'm like, yes, it's like watching
It's smut.
a great movie versus like the porn version of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
it's all the porn remake.
Like, they check all the boxes, everybody's wearing the same costumes and saying the same lines, but then there's like, you know, a dick and a butthole, and you're just like, there's something about this.
It is, and I'll say like, one time I was trying to join a book club, I just moved back to LA, I was trying to make friends. They're like, oh, the first book we're gonna read is 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm like, oh, great. So that is so cringy reading the narration because the narrator thinks she's so great and everyone loves her and it's so indulgent and rooted in nothing and like shallow. And that narrator reminds me of the narrator of this movie.
Very similar. They're very similar.
Yeah, and it's like so interesting because, because Ernest Cline, like he pretty much wrote himself into the book as like this guy. And it's just like, oh, this is the most like, I don't know. Have you guys seen that?
You can't raise too much of a Mary Sue, but this guy's totally fine.
Yeah. Have you seen the first episode of the new season of Black Mirror?
Yes.
Where he like inserts himself and he is God and he does it. I'm like, well, yeah, this is what he did by writing his own book, right? He created his own world so that he could be God. Like that's literally what this guy did.
Yeah.
And it's just
and
like
all
well,
the things he loved are the only things that are important in the world.
Right. And it's so convenient. That's why everything is so convenient because the story hinges on this real life insertion versus like an actual story. Makes
this guy. And I mean,
the movie does a better job.
Yeah,
I will say. Like, I don't want to just sit here. The story has an inherent problem, but the movie does a better job.
Well, and it's like, and I haven't read the book, but to me, it feels like Ernest Cline had a dream that we all have about being input in our favorite fantasy scenarios with our favorite characters, superheroes, movies, all that sort of stuff. And then he decided, I'm going to write a book about it.
Yes.
And he just bleh. And that's why it's like this crazy thing.
It's like these like shower thoughts, like wouldn't it be cool if, and then
oh man, I'd love to be in a fucking
and I can't diss that too much because, like I said, that's my job.
Of course,
we do it every day.
There's nothing wrong about that, but I think there's a way to do it. And I don't want to diss people that do
like it.
Yeah,
I just can't connect with it.
Yeah, and I think there's a way to do it where you can still write it and make the characters, give them some depth so you care about them a lot more. So even if the scenarios that they're in maybe aren't the greatest, at least you're following the characters and you're interested in those characters enough that you want to see the story through. Whereas the book to me is kind of the opposite, where it's all about the situations and the nostalgia aspect of it, and the characters are kind of flat. But thank God that Spielberg made this because I'm at least entertained by it enough. Things like the race sequence, stuff like what they do when they go into Kubrick's world, into The Shining, and even some of the final battle stuff that I'm like, oh, thank God this was Spielberg because at least I'm still in it for this.
I have a question of like, did I forget my question?
I know that's a question only you can answer.
In the book, it was very much like the only reason this character deserves to win in the end is because he conveniently, like, he's like the biggest fan,
the biggest fan,
and
the
he
nerd,
conveniently,
the biggest nerd that knows the most.
Yes, he knows everything that this guy. It's the same.
That's
where
the
like
movie,
that's the merit.
That's one of the unfortunate things that comes across too. Is that's where the gatekeeping comes in. That you're only a true representation if you know every small, tiny little detail about something. And that is not a safe message for the internet right now, because we read these comments on YouTube. We do a trailer reaction, which is a reaction to a trailer, and half the comments are like, "You idiot! You don't know this one thing from this one reference and this one thing
from this TV show and this comic book.
You're not a real fan of this thing." And it's like there's people sitting at that table who have so much knowledge, you have no idea, but that's not what it's about. That's not the experience.
That's so funny because, like, when you watch movies, the hero or anti-hero deserves. You root for them because of some character trait they have. And like this movie, the character trait is like knowing stuff that is conveniently like the key to solving whatever and saving the world and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. It just, is it like,
what I find
is there any other save the cat kind of moment that makes him like a good person?
Some of the relationships stuff, and I was about to say, but then I realized like, the whole aunt dying thing just totally got glossed over.
He doesn't even call her his aunt. Do you remember that moment?
He just references her as her aunt once.
He says no.
Well, mom's,
he
that's
says
right.
When she gets hit, she's like, he goes, "Don't hit my mom's sister."
Yep.
That's weird.
And which would work if they would give us some context as to like
the
relationships and how the relationships work in 2045, but they don't.
They don't, but I also understand. I don't want to nitpick that because I do think Spielberg's making a choice there of like, he didn't find that important to the movie.
Sure.
Fine, I'll take that, because you don't remember it. It's barely a moment.
Right.
It's like, oh, the thing blew up. People are dead.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to be worried about him.
It's
Supposed to be worried about his safety.
Add stakes to it.
It's supposed to add stakes.
Yeah.
Of like somebody he loved and was
Right.
close to
Or
died.
even if it was a problematic relationship and you don't get that moment for it. It's
Right.
just like, well, I guess
Oh,
we're
I see.
skipping over this.
Oh, right. It's like a choice that was made, but then it's never like paid off or
Yeah.
addressed or unpacked.
I thought something that could have been done better for the message that was being put into the film of, okay, so if his whole thing is about having this knowledge, and he's supposed to have more knowledge than anyone else, and that's what makes him the kind of the keeper of the key and how he's the most qualified, I wish there would have been more of a sign of the struggle of getting
What that
that
is.
knowledge is.
Yeah.
To make me care
Right.
more about him.
Yes.
Because he's supposedly coming from nothing. He lives in a
Yeah.
trailer park in the middle of nowhere.
Must be a
Just
lot of
showing me
pressure.
he lives in a
Yeah.
trailer
Yeah.
park isn't as effective if everyone else we encounter in this world also lives in those
Right.
terrible
Yeah.
situations. So I want to see a little bit of his struggle to come up with that knowledge and
Right.
to find that information
Right,
better
like-
than anyone else. So I feel for him, and I'm
100%.
kind of like, instead it just kind of feels like privilege where he just has it.
Right.
Which I thought again was a tone deaf interpretation of the times, where it's
Yeah.
like we more now than any time
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
see his personal struggle, other than him privileged just having it.
That's so interesting because, like, that's totally the thing that was missing in the book too. Is just like, and that's the thing of like his character trait, his like good, the thing you look up to is just that he knows stuff. But it's like, that would have solved that problem if we saw the struggle and how hard it is. And I think that's the weird thing. It's so reflective of today. Of like, nothing's really difficult anymore.
I Google that shit.
You know,
Most of the
It's
people who
like-
complain in those trailers, I know it's because they read an article that we also saw the headlines for.
Yeah, but we're like, meh.
But we choose not to ruin the trailer reaction
Exactly.
by reading all these clues and
Right.
tips
Yeah.
ahead of time. We want to
Right.
react to the trailer.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, great. You read that one article that Bleeding Cool put out about the 10 things you might not notice. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Don't act like you, as a viewer, literally the second you saw this thing,
You
like,
knew what
I
it
am
was.
the expert on
Yeah.
all things
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
involve this.
like.
I do like that they had the library and that he had
Yes.
to go to it.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen more like that, like if he was a little kid or like they had some establishing stuff, or like, you know, if he doesn't have a family and he goes to that library obsessively.
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah, and then you really feel for him because like that needing to know everything would come from a place of loneliness, which is
Yeah.
like universal, and
Yeah.
everyone
Totally.
can understand that feeling.
Which I feel like that's the inherent problem with the book in this, is it's saying like, you're inherently supposed to just feel for him and understand him, because weren't you too a young white nerd who was
Yeah.
looked down upon because you had
Right.
these likes that no one else understood?
Right.
Which is a dangerous viewpoint to take
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
in this current climate, and that's why it feels a little tone deaf.
Right, if it's like so unabashedly just for those people who
Right.
get me kind of
It's
thing.
in a similar way like a Terrence Malick movie, and like that, you'll love this and you'll get this if you happen to have been
Right.
a male of the same background in this very particular situation, because
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
Dude,
self-indulgent.
even Judd Apatow movies.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want to add one extra point that I felt like could have fixed another big problem. The girl, when they like bond, she likes the specific costume he chose because she loves that reference as well. How cool would it have been if she doesn't get that reference and she has her own reference that he doesn't get because she liked a different fandom?
Yeah, and
Just
they're both
something else
excited
where,
for
like,
each
yeah,
other.
Two
they're
unique
both
perspectives.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We love things. That's awesome. Instead, you're only validated if
you like
get
my specific
That's where
Right.
that's where the
stuff.
gatekeeping comes
100%.
in. You're
Yeah.
only
100%.
validated in this, and that was actually a scene very particularly Malika and I were talking about, where it
Yeah.
actually makes it feel more gatekeeping. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
so she would only like you, and you would only like her if you
got
both
it.
got
Yeah.
that reference, and
Yeah.
that's not. You know,
That's not
living
real
in
life.
this industry, one of the great things about it is coming together over the things we love, but too often that gets turned into, oh, you don't love this thing the way I love it, or your fun is wrong. And that is a bad message. The most exciting aspect is like, oh, you have knowledge about something that I've never experienced before. Let's share that knowledge
Yep,
together and have
yep.
fun with it.
Totally.
And, you know, my favorite experiences in this world have been meeting other nerds who are like, have you ever seen this thing? This thing's really cool. You should
Right,
check it out.
right.
And then being exposed to a whole new world and area
Yeah.
that you've never heard of before.
That's so, yeah, and like the people who I think of as like big like 80s pop culture lovers and stuff, like people who love the book, and even Ernest Cline too, like back when you were actually a kid in the 80s and 90s, like the only way you could really love and know all this stuff is to really love it and play it over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And it's like, there's a disconnect between that and then people now who love that stuff. And it's like, you don't have to play Street Fighter 1,000 times to know exactly when to time that punch. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. It's all online for you.
Yeah, yes and no. The newer ones, there's still that world that exists, I think. Maybe not to appreciate the 80s ones.
Right.
But now I would say it's even been taken, which I think was where a lot of this knee-jerk reaction is that a lot of these things now are common.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas the stuff that used to be, I think that's one of the big arguments for a lot of these people, right? Is that it used to be I got picked on for liking these things.
Oh yeah.
And now these things,
everyone.
Now,
now
like,
Street
Nerd
Fighter
is
tournaments
cool,
are
right.
$million tournaments that are broadcast.
And the
Dark Knight
Nerdist
Returns.
is an empire.
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
Dark Knight Returns comic goes up in sales 150%
Yeah.
after they announced Batman versus Superman.
Right.
It's like, where have you been for the last 20 years?
And I kind of get it.
yeah.
Because I went through a phase in college where I first got exposed to other people who like similar things, where there was that little bit of protectiveness of like, wait, I just came from a small town where for 18 years I was picked on and beat up and thrown in lockers and all these things and,
Were you
and
really?
made fun of. Oh yeah, totally. But because that does exist. That does exist.
Yeah.
You know, you can be at the bottom of the totem pole and then come out of it and be kind of like, oh, but that doesn't mean that you then make other people feel like shit. Or
Right.
for me, I feel like, isn't this the best scenario? I got beat up for reading comic books and liking Spider-Man. Now Spider-Man is a universally known
Everyone
entity
embraces
that
him, yeah.
everyone embraces. To me, that is the key goal.
Wasn't that the
there.
goal? Yeah,
that's the goal.
exactly,
That's the
exactly.
ultimate. Like, we did it. We
Yeah.
fucking did it. Now stop being dicks on the internet.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
hard. It's hard not to be protective of the stuff that is personal to
I
you.
get that.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that. It's like the whole like bandwagon fans in sports.
And I
Yeah.
think it's also, I mean, some of it I think sometimes even if it's directed at individuals, I think it's more of a feeling of being annoyed that studios are using it in a cynical way.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Production companies are using it in a cynical way that
Yes.
feels dishonest. And I think sometimes that gets directed at newer fans
Right,
rather
right.
than just
At the
studios.
system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, I grew up being a Power Rangers fan. I wouldn't have people over because I was afraid of being made fun of because I had Megazords all in my room.
Wow.
Look at this set now. It's nothing but fucking Power Rangers.
Yeah.
So
And it's
funny.
cool.
And we're over 30.
Yeah. I'm almost there.
Yeah, well, you know.
But the other thing I will say about this movie too is that I really enjoyed the score by Alan Silvestri, and I really dug the visual
I like the
effects.
score.
Oh, the score
Yeah, the score was great.
Yeah.
It was great to have
Oh my
Silvestri come in.
god. Yes. The theme song, whatever, is so epic.
Yeah,
and
it was
so
good.
Yeah, it was
good.
hopeful
It was
and
really good.
soaring. Like, I love it.
And this is like the first time watching a movie about a video game or about a video game world where the visual effects look like a video game, and I'm like, that's exactly how it should look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
it
was
w-
cool.
It was a perfect translation of like what I would imagine a movie about a video game would be like.
That's cool.
So where I'm like, okay, cool. A lot of times where a lot of these movies, they go all crazy with the CGI and it looks like a video game, but not in the right way. Whereas this embraces it, and I'm like, I loved it. I loved it. It really made me feel like I am in this video game world, and it was great. It was really great.
Did you guys do the Ready Player One exhibit in Hollywood?
I didn't
was
get a chance
fun.
to.
Yeah.
But it closed on Sunday, I guess.
Malik and I
yeah.
went.
You went last week or the week before, right?
We went before it opened with Strawberry 17 and some others, and it was cool. I thought it was
It
neat.
was really cool.
It was great.
Yeah. What was the?
It's like, you know where they had that It promotional
Yeah, I
house
did
thing?
that.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
okay. So it's in the same lot, and it's like a tiny little maze type of thing, or you just like, it's a walkthrough.
Yeah.
But you have to like find 3 keys by doing
That
different
part, the game
objectives.
aspect was terrible.
It was.
The
but
game aspect was really bad.
it
but
has
the,
to be
the
because
set
it's
design
for the masses.
was awesome.
That's
Yes.
how it was too.
Yeah, it was awesome to
The
just
walkthrough of
look
the
at
whole
everything.
Thing was terrible, but like the sets looked great.
Yeah.
So the
the
van
con-
part was actually the one from the movie.
The what?
The van that you walk through at the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah,
is
yeah,
actually
yeah.
from the film,
Right,
and I
they
liked
were
that.
telling
That
that.
actually made my experience in the film a little bit better
Yeah.
because they don't highlight certain aspects inside there.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to get in the actual van
Yeah.
and look at
Details.
every little thing, I was
Really
like,
cool.
that actually helped with the world building a
Yeah.
lot and made that world feel better and more lived
Yeah.
in.
It was, yeah.
The movie doesn't make it feel as lived in as it should, I think.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It did
Yeah.
feel very, it did feel like, not polished in like a very overly art directed way,
Yeah.
which I liked. I loved when you finally get all 3 keys and you walk through and there's music blaring and there's just like you walk through
It's like
this
you're going
tunnel
into
of color.
the Oasis. Yeah,
I love that so much.
it was cool.
That's cool.
It was really neat. Did you meet Beetlejuice there?
No, Beetlejuice was there?
He wasn't there when you were there.
No.
Hey, hermano.
The Beetlejuice we ran into was unique
Yeah.
and a character. Like, oh my god, a character. To where he was kind of following us around, and we'd
Yeah.
like turn around and you'd see him like humping the arcade machine and stuff.
Oh,
and we're like,
that's great.
Huh, okay.
That's
and then
so
he ended
funny.
up following Malika on Instagram later, and his username is literally Ready Player One Beetlejuice.
Nice.
Wow.
It's like, oh, this guy's got a bit. He's
so
committed
funny.
to the bit.
Did you have a Care Bear?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the only big character I
Yeah, the
saw.
dance room was a surreal experience.
Oh, we had Batman. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay.
Yeah, in that room when we went, and I guess they were all there because it was the like preview night. It was
that makes sense.
so many different characters
That's
and
so
weird stuff, and it
cool.
was cool though. I like that,
Yeah.
and then actually those things, I like those experiences that make me enjoy the properties
Yeah.
more.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Those promotions.
closer to it.
It's always fun to see the work that goes into these films because, like, there's so much detail on it, and you don't necessarily
Don't get
always
to
get
see it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really weird too. I feel like until I started like being on sets and stuff, I didn't realize like so much of what happens in the movie is on camera. You know, like
Yeah.
so much of the stuff is really physical. I always was like, that's an effect. That's a green screen. Oh, that's smoke. They added it later, whatever. And you realize so much of it is practical and real, and these are real props. And
Yeah.
somebody spray painted this sign.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not perfect.
The little clippings, every little clipping that's up somewhere
Yeah.
is all somebody's job, and
That's
Yeah.
so
it's great.
cool. Like that's amazing to me. Like I feel like being on art department for a movie like that must have been awesome.
I
For
would.
sure.
They definitely did a lot
Yeah.
for that, and I felt like it added a lot, that experience. 'Cause if you were reading all the articles, there was actually history and backstory. The art team actually put in a lot of their own backstory and history on the
really?
articles on the wall.
That's so cool.
And you'd
I
never
didn't
see them in the
that.
movie, but I love when you have an art team who's just like, if
Right.
I'm
That
going to do it,
dedicated,
Yeah.
we're going
yeah.
to write a for real fake article about
Yeah.
this. And even if it was a ripped, Steve Jobs article,
Yeah.
who cares? Like,
Yeah.
it's still a cool addition.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as far as overall, I
Yeah,
mean,
my final thoughts on this movie
it
is...
sounds like we're like complimenting it and dissing it at the same time.
I
Which
would
is,
say my final thoughts on this movie is I had a really good time with it. I think Spielberg is definitely one of the only people who could have made this movie as good as it was. And I'm curious to see what the audience thinks, whether or not you've read the book, or if, and sort of seeing how you compare the two, what was the better experience for you? Was the book? Was it the movie?
Yeah.
I'm really curious.
I
to
will
see
say
what you
too,
think.
like I read the book in a day. It
Wow.
wasn't.
you read a lot faster than me.
You guys also listen to the audio book.
Even
That's
you read a lot
funny.
faster than me.
Yeah, no, I definitely, and it was like it was a page turner in the sense of like you want to know what happens, and it
fast,
is
yeah.
fun. It is fun. It's just like when there's like a big chunk of references, you just kind of like I can skip that and keep going.
Yeah.
Heather
But I
Ann
mean, it was
Campbell's
fun.
clips on Facebook and commenting on actual excerpts from the book are always some of my favorite posts that she'll make.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because she was hating on that book hardcore.
Yeah, and I'm like, I understand that people who love this stuff are gonna love it, and I think that's okay.
Sure.
I would, if I was gonna rate it,
Yeah.
I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
That's actually not that bad.
No,
That's pretty good.
I had fun.
Yeah.
I
That's
did
pretty
have
good.
fun. I thought there were scenes in the film that were Spielberg awesome.
Totally.
It felt like Spielberg was having fun, which I haven't got to see that in a
Yeah.
long time. So that felt cool to
Yeah.
see like him
Yeah.
actually having fun as a filmmaker and just making a fun movie.
I agree.
And I will say there's a part of me that misses that a little bit.
Yes.
In that everything's a little too taking itself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And and if it's not taking itself seriously, it's winking at you when it doesn't, like a
Right.
Joss Whedon film. And I appreciated that it's just like, it's not taking itself too seriously, but it's also not trying to say in an ironic way.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
Spielberg. It's like 80s
sincere.
Spielberg.
For sure.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
genuine.
and
I love
I miss
that.
And so I
Yeah.
enjoyed that
Yes.
aspect a lot. It's just, I think all my problems originate from the base level of the concept.
Right,
Of
right.
just not connecting to the characters and
Right.
not caring enough.
Like
Yeah.
the lack of humanity
Yeah.
in it, which I
Yeah.
think is at the core of all like bad storytelling. It's just a lack of humanity.
Elizabeth, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, this was a lot better than I expected it to be. I would say it's for like a kind of mediocre story, this is an amazing direction job. It was fun. I wasn't bored.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. It's fun to see Spielberg do his thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm anticipating the comments now because we spent so much time ragging on it. People aren't going to watch till the end, and
No,
most
they're
of the
not.
comments
They're
are going to
not.
be like, "Ah!"
We know you guys do that with every single video that we do. There's very few who actually watch the whole thing and then write something succinct.
That's
And
so funny.
it's fine. All right, guys. So that's our discussion on Ready Player One and on Isle of Dogs. Make sure you guys go check them out. They are both in theaters right now. We will talk about Logan Lucky on the next episode of Cineverse because we just went all in on both of these movies.
Yes.
Before we go, let's go around the table and or around the couch and where can everybody find you guys on the internet?
Oh, my handles for everything is just Vivian J. Yoon.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then, can I just say one more thing because I know this is the end?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard the rumor that
I'm going to walk away from that one.
I have not
It's the end of the video.
That's how you drop a bomb. That was good.
I have not heard that.
Just a rumor. It's just a rumor.
My handle on everything is Forward Prefix Kid. It'll be probably in the YouTube description.
It will be.
I'm here.
I'm here too, every week, doing videos. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, leave your comments down below, and we'll catch you next episode.
Bye.